Welcome, fighters, and revolutionary greetings. We are here to do our session of EFF Book Club. I welcome you all to the reading. We'll be doing the history of the Russian Revolution by Leo Trotsky. We're just waiting for others to come in so that we can start. I see it's 12 o'clock and we can start. Before we can start with the events which led to the Russian Revolution, let us start by explaining the situation in Russia, so that we can, as when we go face by face, we can understand how Russia was like. Now, Russia was led by the Romanov family. It was an autocratic system by imperialists from one to another. So there was no elected government. People were led by an absolute monarchy of the Romanov family. Now, I'll want you to understand the situation in which people were living under, the circumstances. And these are the circumstances which led us to the Russian Revolution. Now, Russia, back then, it made its own people, it practiced slavery on its own people. Normally countries will take slaves from outside their country, but Russia enslaved its own people. Now, what led to the abolishment of slavery? It was not done for the best interest of the people, because most writers will say so and so abolished slavery, but they won't give the real reason behind the abolishment of slavery. Now, the reason why the monarchy in Russia abolished slavery is because even those who were not slaves preferred to be slaves because they were not paying tax. Now, when the Russian government realized that they are losing tax because people would rather prefer to be slaves than working for absolutely nothing and pay tax, they abolished slavery. Now, from the abolishment of slavery, people still had to move around for work, and most of them would prefer to go and stay in the land owned by church. Now, when the monarchy realized that, they presented something called serfdom. It means they did away with the right of movement. Serfs were made to be attached to land. It means if you stay in a land, in Pulukwani, in a land owned by X, you don't go anywhere. You stay there, you work there. So, even serfdom didn't work for the monarchy. In 1861, they had to abolish serfdom. And still, it was not for the best interest of serfs themselves. It was for the best interest of industrialists. and bourgeoisies who owned businesses because they needed people to work for them. Now, Alexander the Second abolished serfdom, but the problem in Russia didn't stop, because after abolishment of serfdom, even though people were given rights to move and work for whoever they want, they had a problem of they didn't have land. Now, without land, they were in a situation where they had to rent land to use or to work for food. Some even worked for food. Now, that was the situation in Russia, the situation of people. Now, here is the situation of government. Even though people were suffering in Russia, the monarchy saw itself as a developed nation. It compared itself to the US, to your Britain, to France. They wanted to be at that level. But they wanted to be at that level without going through the process, the developmental process, which those countries went through in order to be a developed nation. They wanted to be a developed nation, even though their people were not developed at all. Now, in 1904, they went into a war with Japan. The war was for control over Manchuria and Korea. Now, to show that Russia was not fully developed, it was defeated by Japan. At that time, Russia was led by Tsar Nicholas II. Now, failing from the war led to workers to start to strike. There were strikes all over Russia. But let me take you to the one that gave rise to the Russian Revolution. It was on the 9th of January 1905. Now, what happened is that workers drew a petition. They wanted to present this petition to the leader, Tsar Nicholas II. They went on a peaceful march to St. Petersburg. St. Petersburg will later change into Petrograd. Now, what gave rise to workers to go and give the Tsar Nicholas the petition is that they addressed their grievances with the employers, but the employers chose not to attend to their grievances. In their own words, workers said, employers saw our grievances as crime. Now, as part of the grievances, they were saying they want to work for 8 hours. They want to do away with overtime. They want, when decisions about them are made, they must be involved. They wanted political reforms and representation. Now, going to the Tsar, he didn't even give them a chance to address him, even though they were coming in peace. He left his winter palace and stayed somewhere a little bit far and ordered his troops to disperse the crowd by any means. He said those workers must not get any near the Winter Palace. As the result, more than 1,000 workers were killed. But here is a point I want you to see. When those workers went to Tsar Nicholas, they were even singing songs of praising him. They saw him as their last resort to solve their problems. But you know how capitalists behave. They always run away from their problems and use the state to deal with workers. We saw it in Marikana. Instead of Cyril Ramaphosa giving political direction and addressing workers, he sent the police. So that is exactly what Tsar Nicholas did. And that turned people against him. People now wanted nothing to do with Tsar Nicholas, because they saw him as someone who was intolerant to the masses and workers. Now, with the pressure from workers arising and his loss from the Japanese War, and what happened in during the Bloody Sunday, Tsar Nicholas introduced what we call the Duma. The Duma was a parliament. He said he's giving people some representation. But that Duma, that parliament, he had all the powers above it. So it was just a puppet government for him. But I want you to see something. Now that workers have started the revolution, a tendency on the other side start as well. There were political formations which were formed after the 1905 Bloody Sunday. And one of these political organizations was the cadets. Those were the liberals. They believed in constitutional democracy. It's your DA type of arrangement. It was joined by the upper class of Russia. Now, we also had another organization. It was like a Freedom Front Plus of Russia. Those were the conservatives. Now, the liberals were saying the Tsar can continue to be there, but he must be under the constitution. There must be a constitution, people must be allowed to elect their own representatives, and so on. There must be rights for people. Those were the liberals. But the Octoberists, which were the conservatives, were saying, even though there must be limited powers under the constitution, powers of the Tsar, he must continue and the government must be under him. But this Tsar Nicholas, instead of realizing that his monarchy is falling, in 1914, he entered into a war. And this war, it's for dominance over small nations, because after a war, if you appear as a victor, there are small nations that you get from the war. Now, this is in the book. They say Russia had a backward development system, because this man is having serious domestic problems to attend to. He's got a nation of more than 120 million people. More than 50% of them are not educated. They just work the land for a living, the land that they don't own. Only few are literate. But still, he's going to war. But what does that tell us? According to Lenin, he will say, imperialism is the highest form of capitalism. Now, that is why instead of taking care of the people, he wants world dominance, because what drives him is world dominance than the better living standard of the people. Now, when we went to the war, part of the Duma, there were Bolsheviks there in the Duma. Then the Bolsheviks followed Lenin by saying, we don't want Russia to participate in this war. Now, Bolsheviks, on the 4th of November, the Bolsheviks deputies who were representing the party in the Duma were arrested and sent to Siberia. But during the war, remember, Russia was relying on France and Britain for finances. And also, Russia didn't have enough factories to produce ammunition. Russia didn't have better transportation to transport ammunition. Some of the soldiers went to the war without proper boots. There was not enough food. Now, this Tsar Nicholas, he left his government to go to the front line in 1915 to lead at the war as the frontliner commander. He left. Now look how reckless the man can be. He left his wife in charge of government. And his wife was controlled by this man called Grigory Rasputin. Grigory Rasputin was some form of faith healer. If it was in South Africa, I was going to say he was a prophet. This Grigory Rasputin controlled the wife of Tsarina. Now, leaving Tsarina in control of government led to total collapse now of Russia. She will change ministers whenever she feels like. She will take some of the decision with the influence of Grigory Rasputin. And this led to major shortage of food and led to inflation. Now, let me take you to, before I take you to 1917, remember in 1905, the other thing that took place is that Trotsky and other Mensheviks established the St. Petersburg Soviet. And over the next few weeks, more than 50 of these Soviets were formed all over Russia. Now, what are Soviets? Soviets are people representative bodies around different towns. So I just want you, when we are going to 1917, so that you can know the political background, we are having a parliament called Duma. We are having the liberal political organization. We are having Soviets representing people. We are having the Octoberists, which were the conservatives. Because now that we are coming to another part of the revolution, which is the January Revolution in 1917. Now, I would want you to understand that during the war, when Russian soldiers were killed, workers and peasants were forced to go to the front line to fight. Now they left their jobs. Now those jobs were occupied by Russian women. Now, opportunistically, the bourgeoisie made those women to work for long hours and paid them half of what they were paying men. Now you can see what this led this situation to. Now, on 9 January, remember the Bloody Sunday, workers went to the street to commemorate the Bloody Sunday. Now, it was about 140,000 Russian workers. They were striking in commemoration of the anniversary of the Bloody Sunday. It didn't end there. That was the start of the February Revolution, because on the 14th of February, more workers joined the strike. Now, when that Duma realized that it's a chaos now, people are joining the strikes in numbers, they blamed the Tsar's government for failing to address the food shortage, because it was not responding to the food shortage. I want you to get this. This Duma is put by Tsar and is under him. Now it is blaming Tsar and his government. Now, after the blame, Tsar's government responds. They respond by putting a law which limited people from buying a certain amount of food. It means you can't buy 2 bread, you must buy 1. You can't buy 2 what, you must buy 1. You can't buy. So, as they respond to that, people went out and did what we call panic buying. At some point, there was not meat at all. Now, with panic buying, it gave rise again to more strikes. Now, women went out demanding bread because there was no food to buy. They were joined by students and workers, and also, I want you to get this, the socialist agitators. Now, it was a fully fledged protest. It's women for bread, workers for better living conditions, peasants they were fighting, they want land, students, socialist agitators. So it was strike all over for the the government, now people wanted the to be removed. Now, remember, this thing is happening when Za is where? At the front line. His wife in charge. He had to come back. But before he came back, he gave out an order that the Duma must be resolved. He used to give that order and it was dissolved. But this time, they refused to dissolve the Duma. Now, Tsar was attempting to come back, but it was difficult for him to do so. But then, the Duma made what we call the Provisional Government. This Provisional Government was led by, it was Prince Lvov. When Tsar came back, he was told, you must leave your seat. By force. Then Tsar left, but he didn't just leave. He left and say he's giving his rulership to his brother Mikhail. Mikhail said, no, I don't want to take over. Then that was the fall of Tsarism. It was the fall of the autocratic rulership by the Romanov family after more than 300 years. Now, it means workers and ordinary citizens of Russia defeated the monarchy. But after defeating the monarchy, I would want you to look at this. After defeating the monarchy, the power didn't go to the people. It went to the Provisional Government. Now, that Provisional Government was led by people who were leading in the Duma. Now, on the 31st of March, leaders of France and Britain formally recognized that provisional government. Do you know why? I said to you, Lenin categorized imperialism as the highest form of capitalism. Now, it means people of Russia, workers and ordinary citizens, they only removed the highest form of capitalism and put another form of capitalism by the bourgeoisie. Now, that is why France and Britain recognized that government by those bourgeoisies, because they understood that all in all, what they are going to fight for is what? They are going to continue with the war. They are going to perpetuate imperialism, because imperialism is how they are going to expand their businesses in other countries. So, workers just replaced a tendency with a tendency. This thing, you see it happening in South Africa. You see people celebrating that they removed Zuma with Cyril Ramaphosa, and they just removed Zuma with a Zuma of another kind, because exactly what was happening before Zuma is what is going to be happening under Ramaphosa. It's just a shift of who is going to benefit, moving from the Guptas to the Rupettes. So it's you just move from one puppet to another. So I will give a better explanation when I introduce Lenin. Now, this is what the provisional government, when there's a day, they give, or they on the 12th of March, they announce this is how we are going to lead Russia and up until you elect your leaders, because this was just a provisional government. It was not elected, so it had to lead until a new government was elected. It even abolished death penalty. By that time, Lenin was in Switzerland. Now, Lenin in Switzerland announced that if that revolution of workers didn't give power to workers, it means the revolution is still continuing. It was not the end of the revolution. Now, he made means and left Switzerland for Russia. Now, when he arrived in Russia, he gave what we call Lenin thesis. He gave an ideological perspective to the revolution. He gave the revolution direction. Now, I want you to understand what Lenin really believed in. Lenin believed in patience, conscientizing, and agitating. That is what he believed in. Now, he gave what we call Lenin thesis. Now, I want us to go through this Lenin thesis when he was addressing. He said he started with the war because the war was continuing. World War I was busy continuing, and Russia was part of that war. He said the war that is being fought is an imperialist war, and we must end that war because as people of Russia, we stand to benefit nothing. It's a capitalist war. Our people are dying fighting a capitalist war. People are dying in the name of, they call it, in the name of being compatriots. People are dying in the name of compatriotism, that they are fighting for Russia, but they are not actually fighting for Russia. They are fighting for capitalists who want to expand their businesses. Now, secondly, he said the unfolding of the revolution is passing from one stage to another. It means, now I introduce to you what they will call, he was talking of the dictatorship of the working class. He said the revolution passed power from Tsarism to the bourgeoisie. Now we must fight to pass power from the bourgeoisie to the people themselves. Let me give you an example of that. In 1994, when we said we gained freedom, we didn't gain any freedom. We just passed power from white minority to the ruling class. There was no independence which took place. That's why South Africa do not celebrate independence. South Africa celebrate Freedom Day. Because there is no independence that was given to the majority. Now, let me just give you time about that to explain a little bit. In 1910, when white South Africans gained partial independence from Britain, they started to develop themselves as a white nation. They excluded blacks from development. In 1912, they developed land bank to give money to white people so that they can farm. In 1913, they took land from black people to give to white people. Then they even introduced a Job Reserve Act. So all these things continued with black people not being there in the economy. The black people were not included in the economy at all. Black areas were not developed at all. Now, come 1994, power just shifted from white people to the ruling class. Now, did power come to the people? No, it didn't. I will take you to the 1969 Morogoro Conference, where ANC adopted the National Democratic Revolution. And they said the National Democratic Revolution must achieve National Democratic Society. Now, in 1994, those things were abandoned. The real revolution was abandoned. Everything was abandoned. And power was just shifted, and leaders of the ANC were co-opted into the white monopoly capital. Now, one will stand to say, no, that didn't happen that way. If power was in the hands of the people, you were not going to see the strikes and protests you saw during the apartheid time, because those strikes continued. People in Marikana were killed for the benefit of who? Of the ruling class. And the ruling class was saving what? The imperialists. Now, even here, Lenin is saying the same, that these people you gave power to, they are not saving you, but they are saving the imperialists. And to show that they are saving the imperialists, that is why they are continuing with the imperialist war. Now, that is why even today, South Africa is still under the monarchy. South Africa still recognizes the Queen of England as the Queen of Britain, as the Queen of South Africa. That is why South Africa is still part of the Commonwealth. Go and read about the Commonwealth. You will see that in 1961, South Africa left the Commonwealth because those white people said they don't want to recognize the Queen. Now, come 1993, South Africa went back. So we are still under the Queen. Now, Lenin come to show them that what you are having is not a total revolution. You must continue. Now, number 3, Lenin said, you must not support the provisional government. That is not our government, it's the government of the capitalists. It's the same with the government that is leading currently. It's not our government. It's not our... That's why we are clear about that. It is not our government. It's not our economy. Because if it's our economy, we must participate in the economy where we are. We don't have to go to town in the towns which were built for white people and participate in the economy and take bus to go back where we come from. If you are participating in the economy, you sleep where the economy is. Then you are participating in the economy. So, black people currently in South Africa are not participating in the economy. They are just providing labor to the economy. So that is what Lenin was saying here, that no support for the provincial government. That is a government of capitalists. It's not our government. Now, but look at how strategic this man was. He said, let us recognize that the Bolsheviks were minority in the Soviets, and therefore it was necessary for them to be patient and persistent in explaining of the errors. So, comrades, you know, when you explain to the people that it is not your economy, it is not your government, don't worry when they don't understand you. Just continue to explain to them bit by bit. Bit by bit. That is what Lenin came to say. We are minority. And you can see, we started as minority with few votes. Ne? We come again with more votes and increase in parliament. That is what Lenin is saying, that do not worry if these people don't give you their votes. Continue to do what? To conscientize them, agitate them, and mobilize them. Even if you call a community meeting and 2 people come, it's fine. That is according to Lenin, that this thing you must come with it. Now he was addressing them to say they must come with it bit by bit until they gain power. Now Lenin said no to parliamentary republic, but a republic of Soviet workers, agricultural laborers, peasants, deputies. So he said it must be a government where people must see themselves when they see the government, and the government must see people when it sees itself. People must be well represented all over. It must be government by people. Number 6, Lenin in his thesis come and address a long-standing problem, which I started with, to say from slavery, from serfdom, from abolishment of serfdom, the only solution to the problem was to give people land. He said, our revolution will say it's realized when people have land. Now, I want to give you a certain something about land. You will get to understand this more and how liberals think. You see, land and number, it's very much important to the revolution. That is why white people will come to you and tell you about, they will say, hey, these Zimbabweans are taking jobs from you, because they want you to do away with all Africans that are coming in Africa. Because it's not that they don't know that this Russian revolution, because look, the more ordinary citizens develop, the more ordinary citizens give birth and have more numbers, the more they want land. Now they know that the more Africans come in South Africa and we multiply, the need of land will arise. And where must we get that land? From them. So, and the other thing, they know that those ones up there, they are more conscientized about the land more than us. So that's why they don't want us as South Africans to mix with our brothers, because they have read this Russian revolution. They know about it. So they know that the more Africans we accept, the more numbers are growing and the need of land is rising. So the major problem that gave rise to the Russian revolutions. Lenin is addressing it here. It's not yet addressed. Is the issue of land. Now, the other one he raised is banks. He said all banks of Russia must be combined to make one, an amalgamated bank of Russia. The bank that will be controlled by the Soviet of workers. That is why in our cardinal pillars we say we want a state-owned bank, because as blacks we have saved our monies in banks, but we don't have access to it. We can't empower each other with our own money. You can't go and lend money to start a business. They can only give you money for a car, but for house and business you must forget. Now, he went on to say the party must change its name to Communist Party. He further said the social production and distribution of products under the control must be under the control of Russians. Now, that was Lenin's thesis. In short, the thesis was saying what? In short, the slogan: peace, bread, land, and power to the Soviet. Soviet is representatives of people, so power to the people. So peace, land, and bread. Peace, let us get out of World War I. It's not our war. Land, give land to people. Bread, there must be food for our people. And remember, there was shortage of land. Now, Trotsky arrived. He arrived in May from America, and when he arrived, he was seconding Lenin policies. And you must know that even internally, there were those who were saying Lenin is mad. This thing can't be done. Internal. And it's the same thing. Our own black brothers and sisters, you tell them, hey, we need land. Say, yo, a black person, you give a black person land, a black person will mess up. A black person will mess up everything. You know a black person can't even control what? You know a black person can't even do what? Give a black person this, a black person can't do anything. Your own black brother. So, even to Lenin, this thing happened. But he said, remember when they said that you must do what? Be patient. Don't insult them. Bit by bit. Bit by bit. You must conscientize them. Now, after the April thesis, I will want you to take you to some events now. Very much important events. It's they call them the Kornilov affair. The Kornilov affair. I'm taking you to the July days. After the arrival of Lenin. Just to recap, remember, Prince Lvov is the Prime Minister of the Provisional Government. The Tsar is out. Kerensky is now the War Minister. I forgot, I should have given you a history of this Kerensky, but I will give you. Now, Kerensky encouraged the continuation of the conflict, the war. Now, in June, I want you to show that, you know, when we were in TEF, they used to give this slogan of saying the capitalist will sell to us the rope that is going to be used to to hang them. So they are hanging themselves now. They are showing that we can't lead. Now, in June, General Brusilov attacked Germany. Now, when he attacked, 400 of German soldiers were killed. It was a mess for Russia. 400 soldiers killed, 400,000 killed, 170,000 ran away. Now, this was a benefit for the Bolsheviks, for the group Lenin. Now, because now soldiers were tired of the war. Now, meanwhile, look what is happening. Soviets, peasants are seizing land. They are doing what we call land occupation, something that EFF is doing currently. It happened, it took place during the Russian Revolution. People themselves, before the revolution itself, people themselves were starting to take the land. People were starting to occupy land. Now, Ukraine was trying to gain its independence. Now, the provincial government, because it wanted to concentrate on the war, it gave Ukraine the independence. And many liberal ministers resigned from the provisional government. Now, large protests and riots started. They lasted for 3 days. Now, look, after failing to attack Germany and lost the lives of 400 people, they blamed it on who? On Lenin. Because soldiers were tired of fighting and they were joining the Bolsheviks. Now, they claimed that Lenin was a traitor. And this is how they supported their statement. For Lenin to come inside Russia, Germany had to have a buy-in because he couldn't pass through Germany. So they had to let him pass and go to Russia. Then this provisional government said, no, this one, Germany can't just let him pass. He is a spy of Germany. He is working to sabotage Russia on behalf of Germany. They said Lenin is a traitor. Now, Bolshevik leaders were arrested. Lenin made his way to Finland because Lenin was always ahead of them. By the time they thought they are getting near him, he already is in Finland. Now, but the revolution started to gain support. The revolution that Lenin addressed and rearmed the Bolshevik party by the April thesis. People were starting now to understand what was in the April thesis. Like people getting to understand the 7 cardinal pillars. Now, people were starting to understand now that the war is not ours, the government is not ours, we must take power. Now, it gained support from the army, gained support from the peasants. Now, let me take you to the Kornilov affair. Hey, you know, these Russian names, they're difficult to pronounce, man. From Chiawara Secondary School, these names, I can't get them correctly, but at least you can hear them. Kornilov affair. Now, remember, Prince Lvov resigned as the Prime Minister of the Provisional Government. Now, Kerensky came in When the Provisional Government was founded, he started as Minister of Justice because he was a lawyer. Then he moved to Minister of War. He moved from Minister of War now he is the Prime Minister. Now, he replaced that commander that failed there and made troops to be killed, 400 troops to be killed. Brusilov, he replaced him with Kornilov. Brusilov was replaced by Kornilov. The failed commander was replaced. Now, this new Kornilov, he reintroduced death penalty. Now you can see that the bourgeoisie government don't have problem to do to you what the imperialist government was doing to you, because they are not your government. That's why even their economy will do to you exactly, in fact, they will do to you more than what the imperialist government was doing to you. Now, when they came in, they abolished death penalty, but now they are reintroducing it. So that's why people can be killed in Sharpeville during the apartheid government, and people can be killed in Marikana by the ANC government. So you see, there's no difference, because that's what the bourgeoisie do. They will do anything for profit and to expand their profit. Now, this man, he came and introduced the death penalty. Now, why is he introducing the death penalty? Remember, 400,000 soldiers were killed, but 170 left the war. They ran away. Now, when he introduced this death penalty, he said, if you run away from the war, it's treason. You must do what? You must die. But did that work? Soldiers ran away in numbers. They said, Kwafan, we don't have enough guns. We don't have enough food. We can't sustain the war. So it's better to die at home than to be killed here by Germans. So majority of them started to run. And where did they run to? They were starting to mobilize, to be many in that city, St. Petersburg, which was changed from St. Petersburg into Petrograd. They were in numbers now in Petrograd. Now, this Kornilov, he told Minister Krenensky that he is going to march his troops to Petrograd, because he is afraid that the Bolsheviks and the soldiers who ran away from the war can take over government. But this Krenensky, because he was a coward too, like Tsar Nicholas, he prepared for his own commander, because he thought that commander was going to take over government. He wanted a military coup. Now, what did Krenensky do? He armed workers. He gave guns to workers. He released Bolshevik prisoners and armed them. He armed peasants. Now, when Kornilov arrived in Petrograd, he was met by that troop. He was defeated and arrested. Now, this man, the very same commander he put in charge, is arresting because they don't trust each other. Those are the bourgeoisies. Now, this showed people that in this man Krenensky, we don't have a leader. And in the provisional government, we are not led at all. They lost trust in it. Now, on top of that, land grabs were continuing as usual. There were conflict on the land, which was, there was a private owned land and a Tsar owned land. People were taking over. No, Tsar land is ours. There was shortage of guns. It was a chaos. Now, Kornilov, we are done with Kornilov. They got rid of him. Now, let me take you to Lenin. In the meantime, Lenin was preparing. He was mobilizing underground. He came back. I told you he's a strategist. He came back under the disguise. They didn't know he was back. His people knew that Lenin was around. Now, Lenin then led people, revolutionaries to Winter Palace in Petrograd to take power. He was supported by the soldiers, workers, and peasants. Now, when he went there, Kerensky already had left. They said he was wearing a woman. He left under the disguise of women clothes. This Kerensky, he was afraid of being arrested. Now, immediately after taking power, 18 hours, just 18 hours after seizing power, Lenin issued the decree of land, gave people land or no, there is no privately owned land. He called for the decree of peace. He left the war. He seized fire and did what he promised to the people. Now, I want you to look at this. Bourgeoisies, capitalists will never let go of power without fighting back. There was a civil war. The liberals organized. They were assisted by Britain and France. They formed what we call White Army. Lenin formed what we call the Red Army. It was led by Leo Trotsky as his commander. Russia, the White Army of liberals, France, and Britain were defeated combined, all of them combined, by Lenin's army under the leadership of Trotsky. Now, what can we conclude from this revolution? What we conclude is that as South Africans, if we are to learn from this Russian Revolution, we will learn that we have not developed at all. We have been put in a place where we are made to compete with those who have developed when we have not. I'm just taking it from 1910. But we've been excluded from the economy. Government was even used to exclude us up until 1994. And even today, we are not yet included in the economy. I don't know when we say we are compatriots. We are compatriots of which South Africa that we own. It is our economy. The economy will fall. We must protect it. The economy which we own, how? As black South Africans, we are living in the back room of our country. We are securities at the gate, cleaners in the house, and we stay in the back room. We only provide labor to this economy. We don't own it at all. Because if we own the economy, when it falls, it will affect us the same way it affects white people. Now, it doesn't affect us the same at all. We lose jobs, they lose business. Tomorrow they wake up and start other businesses. They have learned to start those businesses on. So, we are in a situation where we must continue with the revolution. We are in a situation whereby we must have what we call the dictatorship of the working class. Now, let me show you that we are not in touch with the leaders are not in touch with reality like Tsar Nicholas. They are talking of what? Fourth Industrial Revolution. But when there is a crisis, they have to buy water tanks to take to schools because there is no water systems in schools. How do you talk of a bullet train when you can't give water and a toilet to a school? So it means you are not in touch with reality. It's you leading as the leading class and your capitalist friends and imperialists. So you are not in touch with reality. You are talking of fourth industrial revolution, friendship and investment with other countries. In fact, you are inviting people to come and exploit your own people. You are talking of investments, but your people don't have toilets and water. But who stands to benefit? I'm not a racist, but white people will stand to benefit because they are developed. Just like Russia during the revolution, we are having two classes. That's why I call South Africa a developed and developing country. We are having another nation living in a developed South Africa and another nation living in undeveloped South Africa. So that's why those ones in undeveloped South Africa, they must wake up, catch taxi and go and work in the developed South Africa. So if we are saying we have arrived, the revolution, we have the revolution is realized, it means Hammanskraal and Pretoria, they are the same. As person from Hammanskraal doesn't feel a need to go and participate in the economy in Pretoria. A person from Kuvi doesn't feel the need to go to Louis Trichardt to participate in the economy. So that is when we say we are having power in our hands. Because currently we are saying amandla, but that amandla is not awake. I will leave it here, and I will take it that we have understood the Russian Revolution and where it is taking us. So even us here in South Africa, as the Marxist, Leninist and Fanonian organization, we are going to push revolution until we arrived. Salute.